The sun hung low in the Enugu sky, painting the horizon in shades of orange and gold. Jidenna sat on a wobbly stool outside his one-room apartment, strumming a battered guitar with a missing string. His music, soft and mournful, drifted into the air, ignored by the bustling neighbors who were too busy fetching water, haggling over vegetables, or scolding children to pay him any attention. He glanced at the half-empty plate of jollof rice with no meat beside him, the meager remnants of what his pregnant wife had managed to cook with the money she made from sweeping people's compounds. His stomach rumbled, but he ignored it, pouring his frustration into his music. Jidenna was a poor man who believed he was destined to be a great entertainer, and so he would do nothing else than come up with songs that no one was interested in listening to. "Jidenna!" cried the landlord that morning, as he had had enough of Jidenna's noise with his broken guitar. "How long are you going to keep up with this? Rent is due, and I heard you and your wife quarreling the other day. Is this how you want to raise your child when your wife gives birth? Wake up, drop this useless music of a thing and get to work. You have 1 week to pay the rent that you owe." "A king is not recognized in his shut that pie-hole of a mouth," shouted the landlord's wife. "Shut it, you good-for-nothing man. I wonder what your wife sees in you. Send her back to her father's house if you cannot take care of her. You have 1 week to come up with the rent. My husband is serious this time." Jidenna didn't reply. He simply adjusted the makeshift strap on his guitar, a strip of old fabric, and kept strumming. That night, his friendly neighbor rushed into his house with a phone. "A hospital just called now," the neighbor said hurriedly. "They said they would call back in a minute. It is your wife." "Where is your wife?" "She has not returned from work," Jidenna said, sitting up. The neighbor could not believe her ears. "Have you seen the time?" she screeched. "And you are lying there!" The phone rang immediately, and then he picked up. He nodded and nodded, sighed and smiled, and then cut it. He put his hand on his head. His anxiety was palpable. "I am about to become a father," he said. He quickly decided that he should go to a bar and play some music so he could get some money to avoid going empty-handed to the hospital. This was a stupid idea because 1 hour at the bar turned to 2 hours, then 5, then the next morning came, and he never got to play anything because there were much better musicians who sang and played all night. He got to the hospital defeated, only to see that his wife was no longer there. But she had dropped a note. "Dear Jidenna, my father got tired of giving you a chance. He took me away against my will to the north. Please find me and bring me back. I don't want to stay another day with him. It is you I want, and you that I love." Jidenna read the letter over and over again, tears dripping down his eyes. He wiped his eyes dry after a moment, deciding that she was better off with her parents. He was going to try to make it before going back to get her, no matter how long it took. Jidenna walked back to his apartment, the weight of the day hanging heavy on his shoulders. The sun had long dipped below the horizon, leaving the streets of Enugu dark and quiet. As he approached his door, he stopped in his tracks. His eyes widened as he saw his belongings scattered outside, the rickety stool, his guitar case, the torn bag of clothes all tossed out in a messy heap. Standing by the pile was the landlord, arms folded, looking as unimpressed as ever. "I told you, Jidenna," the landlord said, his voice rough. "Enough of this nonsense. Rent is due and I'm tired of waiting. No more excuses. Get your things and get out. I don't want to see you here again." Jidenna stood still, his mind reeling. His guitar was the first thing he noticed, its strings broken, the case cracked open. His hands shook as he stepped closer to it, but he couldn't bring himself to touch it. It felt like everything he'd worked for was slipping through his fingers. "It broke as we were moving out your things." The landlord scoffed, stepping forward. "It was of no use to you anyway. Just leave it and go find yourself a proper job. This is the last warning." Jidenna didn't respond. Instead, he bent down and pulled out a crumpled newspaper clipping from the pile of debris. The headline read, "The String King, a tragic rise to fame after personal loss." He stared at the image of a man, a banjo player whose music had taken off only after he lost his wife. The irony stung. Jidenna had been through the same heartbreak, and yet his music seemed destined to remain unheard. Without a word, Jidenna stood up, stuffing the clipping into his pocket. The landlord gave him one last look, then turned, muttering something under his breath. "You've got a week. Don't come back here if you don't have the money." With nothing left to lose, Jidenna wandered through the streets, seeking something to hold on to. His stomach churned with hunger, his mind spinning with thoughts of how to make money. He stumbled upon a construction site where men worked under the harsh sun, shoveling sand and hauling bricks. The site manager, a burly man with arms like thick tree branches, eyed Jidenna skeptically as he approached. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I need work," Jidenna said, his voice hoarse. "I'll do anything, please. I'll work hard. Just give me a chance." The manager sighed, exasperated, and motioned toward the site. "All right, fine. Get to work then. But don't slow down, or you're out." Jidenna grabbed a shovel and joined the others, struggling to match their pace. His arms were already burning, his body aching with each movement. As the hours dragged on, sweat poured down his face, his muscles screaming in protest. He struggled to keep up with the other workers, who moved with ease. His hands grew raw, his back stiff, but still, he worked. One of the men nearby laughed at him as Jidenna slowed his pace, unable to keep up. "Man, you better keep moving," one of them said with a grin. "If the boss sees you slacking, you won't get paid." Jidenna didn't respond. He couldn't. His body had reached its limit. He slowed his pace, managed to move to a secluded spot, then dropped to the ground, unable to keep going. The shovel slipped from his hand, and he closed his eyes, letting sleep take over. The night had fallen when Jidenna woke with a start. The site was eerily silent, the workers long gone. His mind still hazy, he heard something in the distance, a soft, melodic sound, like the gentle plucking of strings. It called to him, pulling him like a magnet. He followed the sound until he found himself near the edge of the site, where the ground seemed disturbed, as though something had been buried there long ago. Without thinking, he rushed to get the shovel and began to dig, his movements almost automatic. He thought he heard someone move, even saw a moving shadow, but he ignored it and continued digging. After what felt like an eternity, his shovel struck something hard. His pulse quickened. He cleared the dirt away, revealing a banjo, old and dusty, its wood worn smooth with age. If you have come this far, it means you are enjoying the story. Please click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, then hit the like button for more stories. New stories every week. Strange glowing runes were carved into its surface, and Jidenna's fingers trembled as he reached for it. He strummed the strings, and the sound that filled the air was like nothing he'd ever heard. It was beautiful, otherworldly. Jidenna felt a sudden surge of energy, an unexplainable rush that made him feel invincible, as though he were destined to be something greater than he ever thought possible. For the first time in a long while, he felt like a star, like he could create the music that would make the world listen. His hands moved instinctively over the banjo's strings, and for a moment, everything else, the landlord, the broken guitar, the empty apartment, faded into nothing. With the banjo in his hands, Jidenna felt invincible. He had found his purpose again. He did not sleep all night. He played and played till the next morning came. If I can just get someone to listen, he thought to himself. If someone would just hear me play this, I know they'll see it too. With newfound determination, Jidenna grabbed the banjo and set off for the local bar that night. The familiar buzz of the nightlife greeted him as he approached. Music spilled out from the open doors, laughter mixed with clinking glasses, and the smell of beer and cheap gin filled the air. It was his chance. Inside, the manager, a short, stout man with a thick accent, was behind the bar, wiping down glasses. He looked up as Jidenna approached, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Boss, I've got something for you," Jidenna said, a bit breathless. "I can play. I've got this new sound, and I need a chance. Just a slot to sing tonight." The manager didn't even look up from his work. "Listen, boy," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "We're only hiring professionals here, people who can fill the place, not some street singer looking for a free drink, and you stink." Jidenna's face flushed. He wasn't ready to give up just yet. Please, give me a chance, Jidenna begged, his voice rising with urgency. I promise you, I've got something no one else has. Just one performance. You won't regret it. The manager let out a scoff, finally glancing up. His eyes landed on the banjo Jidenna was holding, and he burst out laughing. That thing. He wiped a tear from his eye. Are you seriously trying to play with that relic? You're better off with a guitar, or nothing at all. Jidenna's hands tightened around the banjo. Just one chance, please. No, the manager said firmly. Take your toy and get out of here. This is a place for professionals. You're wasting your time. Before Jidenna could say another word, the bouncers, familiar faces from the neighborhood, stepped forward. Jidenna, come on now, one of them said, shaking his head. This is a bar for real performers. Give up this nonsense, man. You know you've got no future in this. Just get a job, eh? Stop embarrassing yourself. The words hit Jidenna harder than he wanted to admit. They were right. What was he even doing here? He didn't belong. His stomach twisted as frustration built in him like a storm. But just as he was about to turn and walk out, the bar's generator suddenly sputtered and died. The music cut out, the lights flickered, then went completely dark. The room fell into an unnatural silence. Jidenna stood frozen in the dark, the weight of his frustration pressing on him. He wanted to scream. What more do I have to do? His hands shook as they gripped the banjo. His heart thudded against his chest. He tried so hard, but it seemed like the world was intent on shutting him out. Unable to stop himself, Jidenna dropped his head, and tears blurred his vision. He wiped his eyes, his shoulders slumping as defeat washed over him. He felt like the universe was mocking him. His hands, however, had a different idea. Without thinking, his fingers found the strings of the banjo. A quiet hum escaped as they moved instinctively. A single note rang out, then another, then another. It wasn't planned, but it was beautiful. His eyes widened as the sound filled the room, rich and full of life, like something ancient and powerful. Without even realizing it, Jidenna started playing. His fingers danced across the strings, pulling out melodies he didn't know he knew. The music, soft at first, began to build, swirling around him like a force he couldn't control but didn't want to stop. Suddenly the lights flickered back on, and the chatter in the room shifted. People were staring, not at the stage where the hired performers stood, but at Jidenna. A hush fell over the bar as heads turned. The crowd, slowly, began to sway to the rhythm of his playing. It was like magic. His music was drawing them in. They weren't looking at the professionals anymore. They weren't even paying attention to the flashy singers who had been up before. They were watching him. Jidenna's heart soared as he strummed, his voice rising with the music. He began to sing, his words raw and filled with the pain of everything he'd been through. I was poor. I was broke. No one gave me a chance, he sang. Kicked out of my house, left with nothing but a dream in my hands. The words poured out of him, the song spilling from his soul. It was his story, his truth, and now for the first time, it felt like it mattered. One by one, people started dropping money into his bag. First a few coins, then notes. The more they heard, the more they gave. The pile grew, and with each drop, Jidenna felt himself coming alive in a way he never had before. The singers on stage tried to grab attention. They sang louder, they danced harder, but no one cared. The room was focused on Jidenna. The music flowed through him, and he wasn't just singing anymore. He was telling them everything he'd been holding inside for so long. By the time he finished, the room was buzzing. People were clapping, cheering, and shouting for more. Jidenna stood there, breathless, as his heart raced in disbelief. The manager, now standing nearby, had a sour look on his face. He saw the money in Jidenna's bag and scowled. All right, kid, he said, his voice low and angry. You did well tonight, but you owe me my cut. I'll take 80%. Jidenna's jaw tightened. The joy he felt quickly replaced by a flash of anger. 80%? You're taking most of what I earned? The manager nodded. That's the deal. You don't play here without my permission, and you don't make a cent without my share. Jidenna's fingers balled into fists, but he didn't argue. He handed over the money, every last bit, before standing up straight. "I'll make it without you," Jidenna said, his voice steady now. "One day you'll come begging me to play here, and I'll refuse." The manager scoffed, a smirk on his face. "You think you're that special, huh? Get out of here, and don't come back." Jidenna turned, walking out of the bar without looking back. The air outside was cool, and as he walked into the night, he knew something had changed. He had taken his first step toward greatness, and no one, not even the manager, could stop him now. Thank you so much for sticking to the story till the end. Please subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so that you get notified when we upload new videos. A new video will be uploaded every week.